I quit my job without a backup plan. And at the moment I handed in my resignation, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. The job had drained me slowly over time. Every morning felt heavier than the last, and I kept telling myself to hold on until something better appeared. But nothing did. One day, after a long meeting where I felt invisible and unheard, something inside me snapped. I didn't have another offer. I didn't have savings planned out properly. I just knew I couldn't stay anymore. The first few days felt unreal. Waking up without an alarm was almost thrilling. I told myself I'd use this time wisely, update my resume, apply everywhere, and figure things out quickly. Friends called it brave, some called it reckless. I smiled and agreed with both, but deep down, the anxiety was already creeping in. Freedom felt good, but uncertainty was loud. By the second week, reality hit harder than I expected. Job applications went unanswered. Interviews that seemed promising led nowhere. My savings started shrinking faster than I was comfortable admitting. The excitement of quitting slowly turned into self-doubt. I replayed my decision again and again, wondering if I had made a huge mistake by walking away without a plan. Then something unexpected happened. With time on my hands, I started noticing parts of myself I had ignored while working nonstop. I picked up old skills, learned new ones, and reflected on what I actually wanted instead of what felt safe. I reached out to people I hadn't spoken to in years, not just for jobs, but for perspective. Some conversations didn't lead anywhere, but others opened doors I didn't even know existed. There were still hard days where I questioned everything and felt embarrassed explaining my situation. But slowly, clarity replaced panic. I realized that quitting without a backup hadn't ruined me. It forced me to confront what I was avoiding. I became more intentional, more honest about my limits, and more aware of my worth. Eventually, an opportunity came, not perfect, not instant, but aligned in a way my old job never was. Looking back, I don't recommend quitting without a plan lightly. It was stressful, humbling, and uncomfortable, but it taught me resilience and self-trust in a way nothing else had. I quit my job without a backup plan, and what happened wasn't failure or instant success. It was growth, fear, learning, and rebuilding. Sometimes stepping into uncertainty isn't about having answers. It's about finally listening to yourself. After stepping into that new opportunity, I realized how much my perspective had changed. I no longer measured success by job titles or paychecks alone. I valued balance, growth, and respect in a way I never had before. The fear that once pushed me to stay at a place that drained me was replaced by a quieter confidence that I could adapt, even if things didn't go perfectly. I also became more honest with myself about burnout. Before quitting, I had ignored every warning sign, convincing myself that pushing through was the only option. Walking away without a plan forced me to finally acknowledge my limits. That awareness became one of the most valuable outcomes of the entire experience, guiding how I approached work moving forward. There were still moments of uncertainty, but they didn't paralyze me anymore. I had faced the worst-case scenario I feared and survived it. That knowledge made future decisions less intimidating. I trusted myself to handle change, to rebuild if needed, and to walk away again if something truly wasn't right. I quit my job without a backup plan, and while it wasn't a path I'd recommend casually, it reshaped my understanding of risk and self-worth. It taught me that sometimes stability comes not from holding on, but from having the courage to let go and start again. With clearer intentions, with time, that courage became part of how I saw myself. I stopped viewing that decision as impulsive and started seeing it as honest. For the first time in a long while, I had chosen my well-being over fear. That choice didn't magically fix everything, but it gave me ownership of my life again. I wasn't waiting for permission or perfect timing anymore. I was actively shaping what came next. I also became more mindful of how I defined security. Before quitting, I thought security meant a steady paycheck, even if it came at the cost of my mental health. After living through uncertainty, I realized security is also about adaptability. Knowing I could learn, pivot, and survive discomfort gave me a sense of safety that no job ever had. The experience changed how I listened to others too. When people talked about feeling stuck, exhausted, or trapped, I didn't rush to give advice. I understood how complicated those feelings were. Sometimes people don't need solutions. They need validation and the reminder that they're not weak for wanting more than survival. I quit my job without a backup plan, and what followed wasn't a straight line. It was messy, uncomfortable, and deeply human. But it taught me that growth often begins the moment you stop pretending you're okay with a life that no longer fits you. Looking back now, I can see how that decision quietly reshaped my confidence. Not the loud, fearless kind, but a steady belief in my ability to handle whatever came next. I stopped clinging to certainty and started trusting my judgment, even when it led me into unfamiliar territory. That shift affected every choice I made afterward. I also became more intentional about how I worked. I set clearer boundaries, spoke up sooner, and paid attention to early signs of burnout. I no longer ignored discomfort just to appear stable. Quitting without a plan had taught me that ignoring yourself is far riskier than facing uncertainty. There were still moments of doubt, especially when comparing myself to others who seemed more secure. But those moments passed more quickly. I reminded myself that everyone's path looks different, and mine had given me lessons I wouldn't trade. I had learned resilience not from theory, but from experience. I quit my job without a backup plan, and while it scared me, it also freed me. It showed me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step away from what's breaking you, even if you don't yet know what will replace it. Over time, that freedom settled into something calmer and more sustainable. The chaos of the early days faded, and in its place came routine, purpose, and a clearer sense of direction. I stopped obsessing over whether I had made the right choice and started focusing on making the most of the one I had made. That shift alone brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I noticed how much lighter I felt emotionally. The constant tension I used to carry worrying about deadlines, approvals, and expectations that never seemed to end slowly disappeared. In its absence, I found energy for things I had neglected, learning, creativity, and simply resting without guilt. Those weren't luxuries anymore. They were necessities I finally allowed myself. The experience also taught me patience. Progress didn't happen overnight, and that was okay. I learned to celebrate small wins, whether it was a productive day, a meaningful conversation, or a step closer to where I wanted to be. Each small moment built confidence, reinforcing the idea that I was capable of rebuilding at my own pace. I quit my job without a backup plan, and what followed wasn't just a career shift.